to pretend to care about one more person's flossing habits today, I am literally going to lose my fragile grip on reality. Like, I am operating purely on iced coffee, delusion, and just the adrenaline of watching fictional people's lives completely implode on screen. Messy, unhinged television is the only thread keeping my sanity intact this week.
You are vibrating on a frequency of pure exhaustion, and I deeply respect it. Because honestly, the sheer, unadulterated mess of television is the only acceptable counterbalance to the madness of, functioning as an adult in the real world.
Yeah.
If I cannot watch a woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown make catastrophic life choices, I will simply become that woman.
Literally, we are outsourcing our mental breakdowns to Apple TV right now. Babes, welcome back. And as always, good morning, good evening, good day, good life, babes. We love you.
We love you, and we are so happy you are here in the mess with us.
Oh my God, yes. Because tonight, we are channeling our inner Drake. We are deep in our feelings, we are a little petty, we are highly observant, and babes, we are officially back on our peach Bellini shit. The leanies, baby. Cheers.
Cheers to the leanies. The clink of the glass is literally the sound of my remaining inhibitions leaving my body. There is something profoundly analytically fascinating about a peach Bellini, though. Like, it demands a psychological study.
Please dissect this for me, because the second I take one sip of a peach Bellini, I am suddenly a millionaire. Like, I am sitting on a yacht in the Amalfi Coast, wearing an oversized linen shirt. The delusion is immediate, and it is so powerful. Why do these specific drinks make us feel like we have generational wealth?
It is the psychological manipulation of the bubbles, combined with the stone fruit puree. Look, any sparkling drink automatically creates a physiological response that leads to terrible, emotionally driven decisions. The carbonation aerates the alcohol, right?
Yeah.
So it sends it straight to the prefrontal cortex, which, as we know from dental school, is the part of the brain responsible for logical decision-making.
Right, the logic just vanishes.
Exactly. So you take a sip, your logic center shuts down, and the peach puree tricks your brain into thinking, I am consuming a sophisticated fruit salad, therefore I am a lady of leisure, therefore I should text my ex and buy a $1,000 handbag.
Stop it. That is too accurate. I am already feeling emotionally vulnerable after half a glass. Like, my walls are coming down, my feelings are raw, but simultaneously, I feel like one sip turns me into an emotionally unavailable Toronto baddie.
100%.
I will leave you on read. I will stare at you from across the room and give you nothing but judgment. It's the duality of the leanie.
I am already acting mysterious for absolutely no reason. I am just staring off into the middle distance, holding my leanie, contemplating the aesthetic tragedy of modern dating. But we also need to address the environment here, because there is an undeniable scientific truth that cocktails consumed at home hit exponentially harder than restaurant cocktails.
Oh, without a doubt. Why is that? I swear, a home-poured cocktail has the strength of 3 bar drinks. I feel it in my teeth.
Because at a restaurant, there are social constraints. There's a bartender using a jigger. There are physical walls of public decency.
Very true.
In your own home, you are the bartender, and your pours are guided purely by the emotional weight of your week. The ratio of Prosecco to peach is dictated by the level of stress, not a recipe. Plus, you don't have to worry about how you're getting home. You're already there. The safety net of the couch allows the alcohol to bypass your defenses entirely.
The emotional pour. That is exactly what happened in my kitchen 10 minutes ago. Now, before we get completely lost in the sauce, we need to give a huge shout out to our girl Victoria from the Snark squad.
A massive, monumental shout out to Victoria, the patron saint of our viewing schedule this week.
Because, babes, she slid into our DMs and demanded we cover this show. And, babes, you already know we've got you covered. When the Snark Squad gives us an assignment, we do not take it lightly.
We treat it with the academic rigor it deserves. Victoria said to get into this mess, and we immediately cleared our schedules, poured the leanies, and descended into the absolute madness.
Now, speaking of madness and channeling our inner Drake, we have to talk about what we were doing right before we started recording. We were literally blasting Drake's Iceman album in the living room.
We were fully spiraling.
And I just need to state for the record, unapologetically, to the entire Snark squad and babes, we still stan him.
We do. And look, we are entirely aware of the current cultural climate. We know the discourse. We see the timeline.
Yeah, we read the tweets.
Right. But analytically speaking, when you have a psychological anchor to an artist, the internet's current opinion is entirely irrelevant.
I do not care what the internet says. I don't care what the timeline is tweeting or who is beefing with who. When that beat drops, I am transported. Why are we so fiercely defensive of him? Because I feel it in my bones.
Because fundamentally, Toronto people will always defend Drake just a little bit.
Yeah,
It is a regional trauma bond.
our trauma bond.
Yes. When you were from a city that, for decades, was largely ignored by the global pop culture machine, and suddenly someone from your literal backyard becomes the biggest artist in the world, it rewires your civic identity. We defend him because the fluorescent lights.
Right. Feeling like the main character of a moody indie film when in reality I was just riding the Young University line at midnight with a heavy backpack and a dead flip phone.
See, you romanticize it, but I have deep, unhealed trauma from the TTC. The delays, the sheer panic of being stuck in the tunnel between St. George and Spadina for 20 minutes.
Oh my God, the worst.
The lights flicker and you genuinely contemplate if you're going to have to start a new life underground. Like, are we mole people now? And the financial extortion of overpriced downtown parking? I am still recovering from paying $35 to park in a gravel lot near the entertainment district just to stand in line in the freezing cold.
The freezing cold, trying to act grown while definitely absolutely not being grown, getting dressed up in these tiny little sheer outfits to go literally nowhere important.
For a frostbite for no reason.
We would spend 3 hours getting ready, flat ironing our hair into absolute submission just to go to a random house party in the annex that ended up being completely tragic. Guys standing around holding red Solo cups, pretending they weren't freezing on a balcony in November.
The downtown energy was unmatched, though. The random club promoter chaos. Being approached by guys with clipboards on Queen Street telling you they could get you on the guest list for a club that sounded like a futuristic laundry detergent.
Yes, and we would go.
Of course we went, trying to look so cool, so detached while being completely broke. Calculating if we had enough money on our debit cards to buy one vodka cran and still afford the night bus home.
I still deeply romanticize Toronto summers, though. There's nothing like a Toronto summer. The humidity, the teenage heartbreaks, the summer nights sitting on cramped little patios on College Street, sneaking out to get food at 2 a.m.
The 2 a.m. food runs were essential.
I remember this one disastrous teenage crush. I was obsessed with this guy who wore way too much cologne, and I got hopelessly lost downtown because my phone died. I was wandering around King Street, and I could hear Drake playing out of every single passing car. He was the soundtrack to us feeling like the city belonged to us.
The emotional importance of late-night shawarma cannot be overstated in this narrative. It was a spiritual experience.
It was healing. You'd be standing there on the sidewalk, freezing in your tiny dress, garlic sauce just dripping down your wrist, processing the fact that the cologne guy ignored you all night.
It was a very specific era of delusion. But we need to do a quick work drama check-in because the delusion continues into our adult lives. The Snark squad knows we love to spill the tea on our professional lives, and we need to remind everyone we are both dentists.
Yes, we are.
We work at separate practices, which is literally the only reason our friendship has survived without us killing each other.
The dental drama is so real. People think dentistry is just teeth. It is not. It is psychology. It is customer service. It is emotional warfare. And today was a day I need to share my highs and lows because I am emotionally hanging on by a thread but thriving anyway.
I am on the edge of the abyss. I am one minor inconvenience away from moving to Italy permanently and opening a vineyard. But please, share your highs. Bring some positivity into this space before I spiral completely.
Okay, my highs. Leaving work exactly on time, which is a modern miracle in healthcare.
A literal miracle.
Right. A coworker brought in those really good, dangerous little bakery snacks, the ones with the powdered sugar that get everywhere and ruin your scrubs.
Oh, I love those.
We had a hilarious moment in our office group chat where someone accidentally sent a very questionable meme meant for their husband. And honestly, a patient complimented my outfit today. So the sheer triumph of surviving the day emotionally intact is my ultimate high.
Those are valid. The structural integrity of a good scrub outfit can really hold a fragile mental state together.
Right. But the lows. Oh, the lows. The passive-aggressive coworkers. You know the ones who say, oh, I guess we're doing it this way now, with a tight little smile.
Ugh, the worst.
The technology refusing to cooperate. My charting software crashed 3 times before noon. By lunchtime, I was sitting in the break room, eating a sad salad out of Tupperware, questioning the entire concept of adulthood. Like, why did we sign up for this?
Because society convinced us that stability was a virtue. And speaking of the technology refusing to cooperate, My low was a curing light malfunctioning right in the middle of a procedure.
No.
Yes, you have a patient with their mouth open, looking to you as a beacon of medical authority, and your fancy blue light is just flickering like a dying disco ball. I swear to you, I looked at the ceiling and thought, Tuscany. I could be stomping grapes in Tuscany right now.
The urge to just drop the instruments and walk out the door. It's that feeling of your own chaotic, hanging by a thread life, just spinning completely out of your control. You are trapped in a system that demands perfection while handing you broken tools.
Which is exactly the psychological state of the protagonist in the show we are covering tonight. We are taking the Snark squad directly into the deep end of the drama. Because if we think our lives are hanging by a thread messes, it is nothing compared to the disaster class we just witnessed in Maximum Pleasure Guaranteed.
We have to get into Paula. Tatiana Maslany plays her, and she is the anchor of this entire chaotic ship. Paula is a fact-checker at a New York publication. She is a newly divorced mom, and she's currently drowning, just completely submerged, in a tense custody battle over her daughter, Hazel.
Let's analyze Tatiana's performance here because it is entirely devoid of vanity. She plays Paula with this kinetic, vibrating anxiety. You can see the exhaustion in her posture.
I was reacting to her so emotionally from the very first frame. Like, the intense vulnerability of this character is palpable. You feel her anxiety through the screen. She is a woman on the absolute verge. Her life is a constant barrage of pings, notifications, emails, texts.
Paula's life is like a group chat you can't mute when you have a migraine.
Oh my God, that is the most accurate analogy ever. It's relentless.
Every single ping is a demand on her energy, her time, or her sanity. And the show does this brilliant thing where it highlights how society simply doesn't allow women over 30 to seek pleasure without judgment.
So true.
She is expected to be a devoted mother, a flawless professional, an amicable ex-wife, all while functioning seamlessly in a capitalist machine that is actively crushing her. There is no space for her to just exist.
Zero space. And look at her environment. Her co-workers, Rudy and Jerry, they are these sarcastic, apathetic, painfully cynical young professionals. They offer zero emotional support. They are the epitome of detached millennial irony.
They are exhausting.
And then there is her boss, Susie. Susie is an influencer turned boss who is constantly holding this promised promotion over Paula's head like a carrot. Paula is doing all the actual fact-checking work, getting none of the credit, and the pressure is just mounting.
I want to debate this workplace dynamic, though, because while Rudy and Jerry are annoying, Susie is the actual villain of the office. Rudy and Jerry are just a symptom of modern workplace alienation. Susie is actively weaponizing corporate feminist jargon to exploit Paula's labor.
I actually disagree. Susie is terrible, yes, she's a corporate monster. But Rudy and Jerry are worse because they sit right next to Paula and watch her drown.
I mean, true.
The apathy is so sinister. They see this woman vibrating with stress, and they just offer up these dead-eyed, sarcastic quips. It's the death of empathy in the workplace.
That is a fair point. The proximity of their apathy makes it sting more.
Hmm.
Regardless of who is worse, the cumulative effect is that Paula is entirely isolated. She has no safe harbor in her real life. This desperation for a sliver of connection, for an outlet that doesn't demand anything from her other than a credit card, is what drives her to pay for online sessions with a cam boy named Trevor.
Trevor is played by Flynn, and let me tell you, I was reeling from the betrayal in this storyline. Paula finally finds an outlet. She finds a space where she can just exist, vent, be looked at, and feel desired without the heavy lifting of a real-world relationship.
Right, it's transactional.
Yeah. She doesn't have to be a mom or an employee. She just gets to be an object of affection. And it blows up in her face in the most spectacular way because during a session, Trevor is seemingly attacked and kidnapped right there on screen.
Okay, we need to push back on Paul's gullibility here. Let's look at the mechanics of this extortion. Trevor was scamming her for $15,000.
Which is insane.
He fakes this kidnapping, staging it perfectly on camera, to extort money from a stressed single mom. But how is a newly divorced mom, working as a mid-level fact-checker, living in New York City, supposed to come up with $15K? The financial delusion on his part and her panic that she actually needs to pay it is staggering.
I don't think it's gullibility as much as it is her savior complex being weaponized against her. She is constantly failing at saving her own life, right? Her marriage failed, her career is stalled, her custody is threatened.
That's a good psychological read.
So when a beautiful young man is bleeding on her computer screen, her brain shorts out. She thinks, here's something I can fix. But the audacity of Trevor is unmitigated. What pushes Paula completely over the edge, what turns this from a panic attack into a dangerous mission, is that Trevor, or his fake kidnappers, actually calls Paula's ex-husband Karl to extort the money.
That is the ultimate boundary violation. You do not bring the ex-husband into the camboy extortion plot. Just don't.
Never. It forces Paula to take matters into her own hands. She goes full rogue. She uses her professional fact-checking skills, which finally come in handy for something other than Susie's superficial articles, to track down Trevor's physical address. She gets in her car, drives out to the suburbs, and breaks in through a window armed with a hockey stick.
The suburban weaponry is brilliant. A hockey stick. But this is where the genius tone shift of the show happens. It pivots on a dime from this dark, quarter-life crisis, indie-feeling comedy into a straight-up dark thriller. Paula is entirely, laughably unequipped for a breaking and entering scenario.
She thinks she's going to march in there, point a piece of fiberglass sports equipment at him, and demand he stop calling her ex. She pulls back the shower curtain, bracing for a screaming match, and instead finds Trevor actually dead in the bathtub. His throat is lashed.
We have to unpack why Paula is even doing this in the first place, rather than relying on the authorities. The show gives us a brilliant critique of the justice system here. The police were entirely useless when she initially tried to report the on-screen kidnapping.
Useless.
Detective Gonzalez essentially brushed her off as a pathetic, scammed loser and told her to just change her number.
Gonzalez was so dismissive, like, oh, it's a cybercrime, honey, and just log off. But I still find myself screaming at Paula. Why break into a known scammer's house instead of just blocking his number? You are in a custody battle. If you think you're being scammed, you close the laptop, you call your bank, and you deny everything. You do not drive to the location.
But you're forgetting the psychological pressure cooker she's in. Karl knows. Her ex-husband, knowing about the cam boy, threatens her custody of Hazel. Blocking the number doesn't silence Karl. She went there to contain the narrative. Unfortunately, nothing could have prepared her for the real murderer.
Enter Daddy Dennis. What a reveal. The show doesn't drag out a whodunit, it gives us the killer immediately. Dennis is played by the icon Murray Bartlett, famously the manager from season 1 of The White Lotus.
We have to talk about how they styled him for this, because it is vital to the terror. He is clean-shaven. He lacks his signature mustache.
The lack of mustache was so jarring, it unsettled my spirit.
Exactly. By removing the facial hair, they stripped away that flamboyant, recognizable charm we associate with him. He looks like a deeply bland, terrifyingly calm suburban dad. He is introduced as Trevor's older boyfriend, and the flashback shows us exactly what happened.
It was brutal.
Dennis choked Trevor with a chain from behind, causing the throat slash. He meticulously stole a hidden USB drive out of the fridge, and then he goes out to his car and brings a mechanical power saw into the house to dismember the body.
The terror of this sequence is masterfully crafted. The claustrophobia. Paula is hiding behind a door in the house, holding her breath, while a man in khakis casually fires up a power saw in the adjacent bathroom. The juxtaposition of his mundane outfit with the horrific violence is chilling.
It's so disturbing.
And we need to mention the incredibly gruesome, deeply disturbing detail where Dennis uses the saw, removes a piece of Trevor, specifically his tongue, and feeds it to his cat.
The cat casually accepting a human tongue is a little treat. The casualness of the brutality is what makes Dennis such a formidable antagonist. He isn't acting out of passion. He's acting out of utility. Trevor was a problem, so Trevor was eliminated.
And we get the motive, or at least the start of one. Trevor and Dennis were apparently involved in this shady real estate scheme. They were trying to buy a rundown motel and turn it into apartments. Trevor had actually put down 30% of the cash, presumably from scamming women like Paula.
If you look at it analytically, Dennis's motel scheme is exactly like a messy Bravo reality star's doomed business venture.
Oh my God, yes.
It's giving Tom Sandoval opening a bar or someone from Real Housewives trying to launch a toaster oven empire. It's a delusional pipe dream built on shady funds.
Yes. It's always a front for deep insecurity. These reality stars try to buy real estate to prove they are legitimate business people, not just messy television personalities. Dennis wants to be a real estate mogul to legitimize himself, but instead of ending in a screaming match at a reunion show, his failed venture ends in actual murder and dismemberment.
While Dennis is firing up his reality TV villain power saw, Paula attempts her escape. Because, of course, in the dead silence of the house, Paula's phone rings.
I cannot handle it. The inability to put your phone on silent when you are committing a B&E is peak millennial anxiety. We are so terrified of missing a notification, so conditioned to be constantly reachable, that she leaves the ringer on while hiding from a murderer. Her phone rings, catching Dennis's attention, and Paula scrambles. She escapes through a skylight, climbs out onto the roof, tries to get down the fire escape, and falls into a dumpster.
And not just any dumpster, a
Yet
dumpster full of garbage where she gets the sharp lid of an open tuna can wedged into her arm.
the physical revulsion I felt, I reacted so viscerally to the messiness of falling into a dumpster and getting sliced by a tuna can. It is the most unglamorous, realistic, disgusting getaway injury I have ever seen. In a Hollywood movie, the heroine gets a sleek little scratch on her cheek. Here, Paula needs a tetanus shot and a broad-spectrum antibiotic.
It completely grounds the thriller aspect in this gritty, mundane reality. But the tuna can isn't even the worst consequence of the getaway, because in her frantic rush to run away from the dumpster, Paula drops a small pink bag on the street.
The pink bag, the impending doom of that pink bag.
Dennis later comes out, finds the bag, and opens it. Inside are a pair of brand new youth soccer cleats. And inscribed inside the cleats is the acronym YABI.
You are a badass. The little catchphrase Paula uses with her daughter, Hazel, the stakes just shifted dramatically.
They skyrocketed. It went from, oh, Paula might get caught for breaking in, to a psychopathic man who feeds tons to his cat now has a direct physical link connecting him to Paula's young daughter.
But the only reason she even had those cleats in her car, the only reason she dropped them for Dennis to find is because of the real villain of the story. Her ex-husband, Karl.
Oh, Karl.
Because Karl called Paula while she was bleeding from the tuna can to remind her that she has Hazel's cleats and she needs them for soccer camp.
Let's do a psychological breakdown of Karl. Jake Johnson plays him, which is a brilliant casting choice because he naturally exudes that charming, scruffy, new girl energy. The audience wants to like him. But beneath that,
I went on a full rant about Karl in my living room. He is the classic, charming, but terrible ex. He weaponizes a woman's stress against her, he knows Paula is drowning, and instead of throwing her a life preserver, he stands on the boat with a clipboard grading how she's treading water.
that is exactly what he does.
He uses Hazel's missing cleats to subtly threaten Paula's custody arrangement.
And we have to talk about his new partner, Mallory, who is a lawyer. The scene where Paula goes to their house to look for the cleats and they get into an argument in front of a grocery store, Mallory looks at Paula, who is visibly unraveling, and asks, "Were you drinking the night before?"
The rage I felt, the absolute rage.
It is a masterclass in passive-aggressive gaslighting. It is designed to seem like a question born of concern, but it is entirely a tactical strike in family law. Mallory knows exactly what she is doing. She is establishing a verbal record of Paula being an unfit mother in a public setting. Karl is standing there having a drink at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, but Paula is the one being interrogated about her sobriety to undermine her credibility.
It is emotional terrorism. They use therapy speak to mask their cruelty, and they keep dropping these subtle teases that Paula has skeletons in her closet. They keep mentioning some past incident in Portland that Karl is holding over her head as leverage in this custody battle.
A Portland secret.
We don't know what it is yet, but it's the reason Paula is so terrified to call the cops.
Which brings us to Detective Gonzalez. The police actually find Trevor's body, and Gonzalez shows up at Paula's workplace.
And this is where the show subverts all our expectations. Because normally, in every thriller ever made, the protagonist lies to the cops, gets caught in the lie, and it causes a huge misunderstanding. But Paula actually tells Gonzalez the truth.
Letting Paula be honest instead of relying on that tired cliche is refreshing from a narrative standpoint. But from a legal standpoint, it is a disaster.
Total disaster.
She admits she was at the house. She admits she found the body. She leaves out the part about the killer with the saw because she sounds insane, but she places herself at the scene of the crime.
By telling the truth, she accidentally gives herself a massive motive.
Analytically, look at what the detective hears. Gonzalez hears, I was being extorted for $15,000 by this man. He threatened my family. So I drove to his house, broke in through a window, and now he's dead. Paula just handed the police a silver platter with a motive, means, and opportunity.
Yep.
Gonzalez doesn't believe her victim narrative for a second. The episode ends with the detective starting to dig into Paula's mysterious Portland past.
It is a flawless setup. Let's just summarize the absolute state of Paula's life at the end of episode 2. She is balancing a murder investigation where she is the prime suspect. She is being hunted by a psychotic White Lotus manager who has her daughter's cleats. She is dealing with an emotionally abusive, gaslighting ex-husband and his lawyer girlfriend. And on top of all of this, she still has to coach youth soccer with some guy named Steve.
The emotional bandwidth required to survive that is zero. She is running on negative energy. I am exhausted just reciting it.
So are we handing out some awards for this level of mess? Because we need to crown our champions of chaos. First up, the main character energy award, who stole the spotlight and acted like the star of every single scene, regardless of their actual screen time.
I am nominating Dennis, and I'm nominating him specifically for the sheer audacity of executing a cartel-level dismemberment while looking like he's about to attend a neighborhood barbecue.
That is so dark.
The juxtaposition of his calm demeanor while wielding power tools is the definition of main character energy. He is not a side character. He is the orchestrator of doom.
I hear your argument, but I am fiercely disagreeing. I am nominating an inanimate object. I am nominating Paula's phone.
The phone. A piece of technology.
Yes,
Oh.
because Paula's phone ringing at the worst possible time directed the entire plot. If that phone doesn't ring, Dennis doesn't hear her. She doesn't fall out the skylight. She doesn't fall into the dumpster. She doesn't drop the cleats. The phone is the unseen antagonist pushing the narrative forward. The phone is a proxy for the universe punishing Paula.
A phone is merely a tool. Dennis is the operator of the violence. Dennis made the choice to buy the saw.
But the phone made the choice to ring. Okay, fine, we can agree to disagree. But can we also just have a brief honorable mention for the cat? Because the cat also had massive main character energy for casually accepting a human tongue as a treat.
Oh my God, the cat.
The cat did not question it. The cat just said, ah, wet food, and went about its day.
The cat is a sick, twisted icon. Okay, next debate. Most emotionally dangerous. Which character would ruin our lives romantically? We are choosing between our two toxic kings, Trevor the cam boy and Karl the ex-husband. I will take a firm stance here. Trevor is the most emotionally dangerous.
Really?
Yes. This is a man who cultivates an intimate, vulnerable relationship with you for months, learns your deepest insecurities, and then stages a violent kidnapping on a live stream to extort you. That is premeditated, sociopathic emotional terrorism.
Trevor is criminal, yes. But, babes, Karl is so much worse.
Worse than an extortionist who fakes his own death. Explain your logic.
Because Trevor is a clear, definable villain. You know Trevor is a scammer eventually. Karl is insidious. Karl uses therapy speak to mask his cruelty. Karl asks, were you drinking in a grocery store parking lot while he is day drinking himself?
Okay, that's fair.
Trevor wants your money. Karl wants to rewrite your reality. He uses the threat of taking your child away to methodically drive you insane while making you look like the crazy one to the rest of the world. A scammer ruins your bank account. Karl ruins your entire concept of sanity.
The psychological warfare of a custody battle. You make a compelling argument. The gaslighting is potent. A man armed with subtle threats and a lawyer girlfriend is indeed a weapon of mass destruction.
Thank you. Now let's bring it back home for the Toronto nightlife survivor test. We are taking these chaotic characters and dropping them into our messy Toronto memories. Who survives a chaotic night out in the 7th?
Karl would not survive 10 minutes. Karl would have a complete meltdown waiting for the 504 King Street streetcar in the dead of winter.
Oh my God, yes he would.
The streetcar would short turn at Spadina. Karl would realize he has to walk in the snow in his little Chelsea boots. He would throw a temper tantrum, blame Mallory, and demand to take an $80 Uber home to the suburbs. Karl is profoundly weak.
Karl is so weak. He would be complaining about the line at the club, complaining about the cover charge. He would tap out by midnight. Now, Dennis. Dennis would thrive.
Dennis would run the city by 2 a.m.
Dennis would be in the VIP section of the shadiest underground club in the entertainment district. He would be sipping bottle service, silently observing everyone, making terrifying business deals with promoters. Nobody would know exactly what Dennis does for a living, but everyone would be afraid to ask.
And Paula. Does our patron saint of burnout survive the night?
Paula survives, but barely. She would make it through the club. She would pretend to have a good time. But by 3 a.m., the facade would crack. She would end up sitting on the curb at Yonge and Dundas, crying over a text from Susie, eating late-night shawarma and trauma dumping to a random pigeon.
And honestly, that is the most authentic Toronto nightlife experience of them all. We have all been Paula on the curb with the garlic sauce.
We truly have.
Huh.
Okay, let's close out with things that instantly give us the ick. A rapid-fire, highly opinionated list inspired by the episodes.
I will start. Grown men who fake their own trauma for $15,000. Immediate ick. Do not involve me in your fake kidnapping to fund your doomed motel ventures.
Ex-husbands who ask, "Were you drinking?" in front of a grocery store, the passive-aggressive concern is the ultimate ick. Keep your fake therapy speak to yourself, Karl.
Millennial coworkers like Rudy and Jerry who offer you zero actual support when you're clearly unraveling, but they'll give you a sarcastic hug just to be ironic. The irony poisoning is an ick.
Falling into a dumpster and getting an open tuna can lid wedged into your arm? That is the ultimate physical ick. I am updating my tetanus shot just thinking about it.
And finally, people who call you on FaceTime from an unknown number, that is an invasion of privacy. Do not perceive me unless we have scheduled it via text message at least 3 business days in advance.
Amen to that. Do not FaceTime me. Ever. Wow, taking a deep breath after all that mess. I feel like we just ran an emotional marathon through Paula's trauma.
We truly traversed the landscape of psychological warfare today.
We did, and we loved every second of it. We want to thank the Snark Squad so much for hanging out with us, for drinking leanies, and for spiraling with us tonight. We needed this to survive the week.
The therapy bill would have been astronomical otherwise.
Now, we have a question for the audience. We need you to hit us up in the comments, in the DMs, everywhere. We have to know, do you still stand Drake? Be honest. We told you our truth, now tell us yours.
We are ready for the discourse. But before we go, we want to leave you with one final, lingering, deeply unsettling thought to mull over.
Think about this, babes. If Dennis is willing to chop up the man he supposedly loves, his actual boyfriend, over a petty real estate scheme, what on earth is he going to do when he tracks down Paula using a pair of youth soccer cleats?
It's terrifying. Paula's world is officially entirely off its axis and the water is rising rapidly.
It's murky, it is dark, and we are obsessed. Stay messy, stay delusional, and we will see you on the Snark side.